My husband had weak sperm, so we decided to undergo in vitro fertilization. But just before the embryos were to be created, I accidentally caught him secretly swapping my eggs for those of his unforgettable first love, the woman he had silently cherished for years. I didn't say a word. I simply switched them back. And while I was at it, I also replaced his sperm with that of my ex. 25 years later, his white moonlight came crying to my daughter, her tears falling like pear blossoms in the rain. My love, I'm your real mother. 1. My daughter, Tutu, and I had just returned from an overseas medical conference. The moment we stepped inside the house, we froze at the sight before us. The living room was crowded with people, relatives so distant they rarely showed their faces, yet today, they were all here as if the Zhang family were holding some grand reunion. In the center of the room, Bok Na-tu sat on the couch, weeping and wailing pitifully.
Beside her was Jiang Guija,
my husband, who hadn't cared about his wife and child for years, holding her tightly, eyes brimming with uncharacteristic tenderness and sorrow. Raising an eyebrow, I wheeled our suitcase aside and looked at him with a soft voice. Is there some celebration going on today that the whole clan is here? Tutu followed behind me, arms crossed with a cold expression, her eyes filled with disdain as they settled on Bok Na-tu. Perhaps she had already guessed the identity of this woman. My mother-in-law sat in the host's seat, her face dark with unspoken thoughts. Before Zhang Guijia could speak, Bok Na-tu, tears and snot streaming down her face, rushed over to Tutu and choked out, "My love, I am your real mother." Tutu quickly stepped aside, brows furrowing as if something filthy had brushed against her. She took a step back, her voice icy and clear. "My mother's name is Han Wudong. That's my daughter, understanding and strong, like a warm coat in the depths of winter." I gently held her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Then, without a word, I raised my hand and slapped Bok Na-tu straight across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed in the oddly silent room. "Don't go around claiming family ties so freely." My voice was calm but laced with chill, my gaze as sharp as a blade.
Jiang Guija immediately leaped up, crawling back từ in distress, shouting angrily at me. "Han Wudong, are you insane?
How could you hit Na-tu?" He even raised his hand ready to strike me. But Tutu stepped forward and slapped him hard across the face. "You dare lay a hand on my mother?" Her voice wasn't loud, but each word was heavy like lead weighing down the room. Zhang Guijia froze, his face flushing with fury, his hand still suspended mid-air. Bok Na-tu quickly pulled him back, sobbing, her voice weak and trembling.
"Guija, don't."
"That's our daughter." Her feigned gentleness almost made me laugh aloud. Zhang Guijia withdrew his hand, glaring at Tutu. "For the sake of your biological mother, I'll let you go today." Tutu curled her lips in a cold smirk. "And what right do you have to lecture me?" Her gaze was icy, like snow and frost, so much like me in my younger years. A quiet smile curled in my heart. "No doubt, she is my daughter." A senior family member cleared his throat, trying to restore order. "Everyone quiet." His voice was deep and firm, carrying a weight that silenced the room. All eyes turned to him. He looked at Zhang Guijia. "Guijia, why did you gather everyone here today?" Zhang Guijia took a deep breath, as if mustering all his courage. He wrapped an arm around Bok Na-tu's shoulders, eyes brimming with emotion. "There's something important I need to announce." He paused, scanning the room before resting his gaze on me and Tutu. I remained silent, watching calmly, waiting to see what other performance he had in store. "Tutu is not Wudong's biological child." His voice wasn't loud, but it dropped like a bomb in the middle of the room. Tutu turned to me, surprise flashing in her eyes. I merely gestured for her to stay calm. The room erupted in murmurs, like sharks catching scent of blood. Back then, when we did IVF, Zhang Guijia wore an anguished expression. The doctor said Wudong's eggs weren't of good quality. I didn't want to hurt her, so I quietly used Na-tu's eggs instead. This shameless man, he dared to twist the truth and blame it all on me. He looked at me, clearly expecting an outburst. But I remained composed, forcing him to continue. "Today, I invited everyone here to witness." He turned to Bok Na-tu with affection in his eyes. Tutu acknowledging her real mother. The relatives immediately stirred in excitement. If Tutu isn't Han Wudong's daughter, then of course she should recognize her real mother. Exactly. Can't even give birth and still hogging the title of the Zhang family's matriarch. Time to step down. Han Wudong clung to the Zhang Corporation for years. Now that the truth is out, she should just let go. I let out a cold laugh. These people, ever since I pushed them out of the company's board, all they did was wait for their end-of-year dividends. Now that Zhang Quijia had turned on me, they couldn't wait to claw their way back in. Tutu gripped my hand tightly, her frosty gaze sweeping across the crowd. I spoke, my voice steady but firm. Tutu is my daughter. That truth cannot be changed. Bok Na-tu put on a pitiful face, her voice choked. Sister, how long are you going to keep lying to yourself? 3. I have never lied to myself, because Tutu truly is my biological daughter. Did Zhang Quijia and Bok Na-tu really think they could outsmart me? Back then, when we discovered Zhang Quijia had weak sperm, we decided on IVF. Just before the embryos were to be created, I happened to see him with a nurse secretly opening the storage container holding my eggs. I even heard him gloating on the phone to Bok Na-tu. Your eggs have been switched in. I didn't make a scene. I simply turned away and handed the doctor $1 million, instructing them to use the eggs I had previously stored. And I carefully added another instruction. Replace Zhang Quijia's sperm with that of my ex-boyfriend. On embryo fusion day, both Zhang Quijia and I were present. He was overjoyed, probably believing he had created the love child of his dreams. I watched him like a clown on stage, laughing silently inside. All these years watching him dote on Tutu so attentively, it's been nothing but amusing. He tried to trap me, only to become a stand-in father for over 2 decades. Zhang Quijia's voice, laced with mockery, snapped me out of my thoughts. Go ahead. Deny it. Sure, you gave birth to Tutu, but the egg wasn't yours. Na-tu is her real mother. I smirked, my voice cold and laced with disdain. Are you daydreaming in broad daylight? If you don't believe me, let's do a DNA test, he shouted. I want a divorce. You forced me into marriage, tormented me for 25 years, I've had enough. At the mention of divorce, joy lit up his face. Clearly, he had been waiting for this moment. Ridiculous. A man like him dares to say he gave me his all? In 25 years of marriage, I've lived like a widow. I raised our child alone, while he indulged in pleasure with Bok Na-tu's day. I struggled to hold up the company, while he drowned himself in liquor and gambling. And he was completely wrong about one thing: I didn't marry him out of love. I was never the kind of woman who chased after men. I chose him, solely for the title of the Zhang family's young madam, and the control over Zhang Corporation. Now Zhang Corporation lies securely in my hands. So Zhang Quijia no longer holds any value to me. I agreed to the divorce. I shrugged, my expression calm. As for the DNA test, unnecessary. I'm absolutely certain Tutu is my daughter. Tutu turned to me, her eyes filled with trust. Mom, I believe you.
Zhang Quijia and Bok Na-tu immediately grew flustered.
Tutu, don't you believe in your father? Tutu didn't respond, just quietly stepped closer to my side. At that moment, a young man looking like a student suddenly burst into the room. He walked straight up to Tutu, beaming brightly. Sister! The entire room fell into stunned silence. As if having a mother drop from the sky wasn't shocking enough, now there's a little brother too? I looked closely at the boy whose features slightly resembled Bok Na-tu's day. A suspicion slowly surfaced in my heart. Perhaps this was the illegitimate child of Zhang Quijia and Bok Na-tu? They kept him hidden so well. After more than 20 years, I had no clue. It seems this drama is even more twisted than I thought. My mother-in-law sat in the main seat, her eyes sharp as she stared at the boy. Though she said nothing harsh, her presence carried undeniable authority. Quijia, what is the meaning of this? The air in the living room immediately grew heavy, as though an invisible sheet of ice had fallen over us. The boy's eyes were red, his voice trembling as if on the verge of tears. Sister, I've always known you existed. He stammered softly, his eyes uneasy. He stole a glance at me, then quickly lowered his head, as if afraid of being reprimanded. My mom, she used to tell me about you. She said you were amazing and beautiful too. Right then, Bok Na-tu began sobbing, pressing a handkerchief to her lips, her body quivering lightly. Tutu, my beloved daughter. All these years I've truly missed you. She lifted her head, tears streaming down her face, as if burdened by some deep unbearable grievance. Catch, she's always longed to meet you. We've even followed you in secret so many times. Jong Catch nodded quickly, his voice flustered. It's true, sister. I transferred to your school just because I wanted to be closer to you. He fumbled through his bag and pulled out a stack of photos, hesitantly handing them to Tutu. These are of you. I took them secretly. Tutu took the photos, flipping through them, one from graduation, her smile radiant, another after a dance rehearsal, her face tired and glistening with sweat, yet another captured mid-debate, her eyes shining with passion. A chill ran down Tutu's spine. So all these years, someone had been silently lurking nearby, watching her, taking pictures, tracking her every move. At that moment, Jong Kui-jia stepped forward, standing before his mother and pointing to Jong Catch with solemnity. Mother, this is the grandson of the Jong family. Today, all the elders are present as witnesses. Mother, please accept this child. How clever. Since his father passed away, the one with the most authority in the family has been his mother. Summoning all the relatives today was merely a move to pressure her into acknowledging his illegitimate son. He knew perfectly well, if his mother agreed to let Jong Catch return to the family, I wouldn't be able to object. For the past 25 years, I've always been the dutiful daughter-in-law, showing her the utmost respect. Jong Catch was quick-witted too. He immediately turned to my mother-in-law, bowed politely and greeted her. Grandmother. She looked at the boy, then back at me. Her eyes flickered with tangled emotions, though she said nothing yet. I understood she cared for me. I didn't want to make things harder for her, so I gently spoke, breaking the heavy silence. Jong Kui-jia, having your illegitimate child return to the family to claim the Jong inheritance. That's your real goal, isn't it? But why drag Tutu into this? I turned to look at Tutu, sharing a knowing glance. Even if Tutu isn't my biological daughter, she is the only child under the name Han Vu Dong. All the assets in my name, real estate, stocks, investment funds, and the 20% share of Jong Corporation, I will leave entirely to her. Tutu, tell me, do you choose to stay with mom, or with your father, and this so-called birth mother of unclear truth? My daughter was quick-witted. Upon hearing that, her eyes lit up with understanding almost instantly. She rushed into my arms, pressing her cheek against mine, her sweet voice ringing clear. Dad has a son now, and he doesn't plan to leave anything for me. Of course, I'll stay with mom. Good girl. Truly worthy of being my daughter. One simple sentence exposed all of their greedy intentions. The moment Bok Na-tu heard me declare that all my assets would go to Tutu, her eyes lit up like a high-wattage light bulb. She knew all too well how immense that fortune was. Just the jewels and real estate alone were enough to stagger the mind. And the 20% stake in Jong Corporation. It was like holding a mountain of gold. Greed. It showed plainly on her face, not even bothering to hide. She leaned in close to Jong Kui-jia, whispering with calculating intent. Back then, when the old man passed, to maintain balance, he split 60% of Jong shares into 20% for Han Vu Dong, 20% for your mother, 10% for Tutu, and only 10% for you. If Han Vu Dong transfers her share to Tutu, and we coax her into signing it over later, you'll control 40%. What matters now is getting Han Vu Dong to give up her assets. Force her out with nothing, and win Tutu over to our side. To Jong Kui-jia it made perfect sense. He stepped forward, trying to appear the model father. Tutu, your little brother is a boy. He'll manage on his own in the future, and won't fight you for anything. Dad agrees to leave everything to you. He hesitated, then added a condition. But you have to take a DNA test with Na-tu. If the results show she's your real mother, you must accept her and treat her well. Tutu gave me a quick glance. I nodded gently in response, no words needed. All right, she replied crisply. But she wasn't so easily fooled. She immediately added her own condition. But before the test, both of you have to come with me to the notary office and transfer all the assets to my name. Everything, no holding back. I chuckled inwardly. This daughter of mine, she's remarkably clever. What's truly yours is what you hold in hand. Verbal promises, who would trust those? At this point, the gathered relatives, who had been eavesdropping the whole time, were now thoroughly excited, unable to hide their glee. Everything Bak Na-tu had in mind, they had thought of too. Their eyes sparkled as if mountains of treasure were materializing before them. Their greed shameless and plain to see. Zhang Kuijia lacked the capability to manage a business. If Zhang Corporation fell into his hands, wouldn't they be free to manipulate things however they pleased? That's right. That's how it should be. Someone loudly agreed. I'll call the notary office right away. Another quickly pulled out their phone. The room bustled like a festive celebration, as if they were preparing for a grand wedding. My mother-in-law stood quietly to one side, clearly worried. She gently urged me, "My dear, about the assets, are you sure about this?" I smiled softly, shaking my head. "Don't worry, mother. I've planned everything carefully." She knew I had always been steady and composed. Seeing how calm I was now, she said no more. With everyone's enthusiastic assistance, all assets in both my and Zhang Kuijia's names, leaving each of us just 50,000 for living expenses, were transferred to Tutu's name. At the notary office, Zhang Kuijia and Bak Na-tu couldn't hide the radiant joy in their eyes as they looked at Tutu, as though already seeing the dazzling future where their daughter would reign over Zhang Corporation, their smiles blooming like flowers. I looked at the two of them, lost in their delusions, then turned to glance at my daughter, now a young billionaire, and smiled gently. But simply making Zhang Kuijia bleed wasn't nearly enough. I also wanted to rip off the mask Bak Na-tu had been wearing all this time. Bak Na-tu, haven't you always claimed to love Tutu deeply? Then, don't you think it's time to show a little sincerity? I spoke calmly, my gaze brushing across her meticulously painted face, pretending to speak as if in passing. For over 20 years, I raised Tutu in your place. A rough estimate, that's cost me several million yuan. I don't need you to pay me back. Just transfer that amount to Tutu. After all, she's always been the one I love most. Tutu, standing beside me, immediately chimed in with an adorably sweet tone. Auntie Bak, you've been with my dad for so many years now, so a few million probably isn't a big deal, right? And since we're already at the notaries, why don't you show a little goodwill? If not, I might start doubting whether you ever truly loved me, or if you only wanted to claim me as your daughter for Zhang family's fortune. Bak Na-tu's face instantly stiffened, caught in an impossible situation. To give the money would hurt her. To refuse would expose her fake affection and selfish motives. At last, after gritting her teeth and hesitating, she had no choice but to pull a card from her handbag and hand it to Tutu, forcing a gentle smile. Tutu, of course I love you. Here's 5 million yuan, money I've saved up over the past dozen years. Tutu took the card without a hint of politeness and immediately called a notary staff over to handle the transfer on the spot. Bak Na-tu tried to keep smiling, but her expression was twisted and warped, like someone was slicing off her flesh, bit by bit, right in front of everyone. Chapter 3. Zhang Kuijia personally selected the appraisal center, wary that I might play tricks, so he chose the National Forensics Institute with the highest authority. I let out a soft snort so sly. After the staff had finished drawing blood from me, Bak Na-tu and Tutu, I casually requested that they also take Zhang Kuijia's blood for a paternity test.
Zhang Kuijia's eyes widened in shock.
Han Wudong, are you insane? Tutu is obviously my daughter. I curved my lips into a knowing smile, eyes glinting with implication. We're Chinese, aren't we? Since we're already here, might as well do it all at once. Tutu, though not entirely sure of my intentions, knew well I never did anything without reason. So she quickly changed her tone, becoming adorably clingy, and pouted until Zhang Kuijia reluctantly agreed. At this point in Zhang Kuijia's eyes, Tutu was like a living goddess. Whatever she said, he followed to the letter. After leaving the testing center, that was when Bak Na-tu's son, Zhang Catch, finally strolled in, holding a bouquet of flowers.
Hey, sis, greeted Tutu cheerfully.
offering the bouquet as he moved in for a hug. Tutu immediately stepped back, her expression sour like she'd just swallowed a dead fly. Back off. He was half a head taller than her, clean cut and well-dressed, with the look of a polite gentleman. That's your little brother, Bok Na-tu quickly explained. Family should love each other. Tutu rolled her eyes. The test results aren't out yet. Don't rush to claim kinship. I spoke slowly and evenly. Well, I won't disturb your family reunion. Zhang Guiza. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and file for divorce. Since both of us had already transferred all assets to Tutu, there was nothing left to divide. No custody battle either. All we needed was to walk into the bureau to get the divorce certificate. Bok Na-tu's eyes widened, nearly jumping with glee. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to agree to the divorce so easily. She probably assumed I would cling, cry, make a scene, and refuse to let go. But Tutu stayed close by my side, not stepping even half a pace away. Seeing how close mother and daughter were, like shadows of one another, Bok Na-tu's eyes reddened instantly, unable to hide the jealousy burning within. While Tutu went to retrieve the car, Bok Na-tu finally found the chance to approach me, her voice laced with sarcasm and venom.
Han Vu Dong, Giang Quy Gia never loved you.
Do you know why the girl is named Tutu? Because there's a 2 in my name. Zhang Kuijia wrapped an arm around her, his expression smug. Just wait for the test results. When they come out, Tutu will come back to us. Zhang Kech also dropped his polite little bunny act, his attitude now openly arrogant. All the assets belong to my sister now. Once the results are out, you'd better be ready to sleep under a bridge. I merely glanced at them, too bored to respond to such pathetic provocations. Seeing my silence, Zhang Kuijia thought he had won, and let his true face show. You've held control of Zhang Corporation for long enough. Now it's my turn. I let out a cold, faint laugh. So in the end, what you really wanted wasn't Tutu, but Zhang Corporation. And what if it is? Zhang Kuijia shrugged carelessly. All the assets are already in Tutu's name. All we need now is the DNA results. Once that's done, I'll be the one in charge. I looked straight into his eyes, mine like ice. Then let's see if you're truly blessed enough to handle the weight of Zhang Corporation. Chapter 4. The two of them, giddy with their scheming, thought everything was firmly in their grasp. But they had no idea, they never had a chance of winning from the very beginning. While I was busy wrapping up company affairs, Zhang Kech had the audacity to barge in, arrogantly kicking out the current CEO, and plopping down into the executive leather chair with his legs crossed, loudly declaring, I'm the chairman's brother, so starting today, I'm the CEO. Everyone in the office was stunned into silence, too afraid to object, merely glancing at one another in disbelief. But I was not like them. Throw him out, I said calmly. The security guard stepped forward immediately to escort him out. You dare lay a hand on me? Zhang Kech jumped up, jabbing a finger at the guards and shouting, The chairwoman is my sister. I'm her biological brother. You dogs better watch yourselves. And he didn't stop there, he turned to scream at me. You rotten old witch. You've been kicked out of the Zhang family. What right do you have to give orders in Zhang Corporation? He shoved the guards, charging toward me as if ready to attack. Truly, a madman drunk on his own delusions. Just then, Tutu walked in. Her expression was icy, her gaze sharp and cutting. What's going on here? Big sis. You came just in time. Zhang Kech instantly changed his tone, looking all pitiful. This old hag is trying to throw me out of the company. This is a company, not a playground for your nonsense. Tutu said coldly, eyes locking onto him. And, I'm not your sister. My dear, how could you say such a thing to your own brother? Bok Na-tu rushed in, her voice soft and sweet. You two are family. You'll have to run the company together one day. You're just a girl. Without your birth family to support you. What if someone bullies you? Tutu let out a dry laugh full of mockery. Throw both of them out. Seeing that kindness wasn't working, Bok Na-tu immediately changed her tone, putting on a pitiful act and blocking the guards. I'm the wife of Zhang Corporation's heir, Zhang Kuijia. I'm Zhang Tutu's birth mother. I have a share in this company too. I smiled faintly, my voice cool and distant. Please leave. Don't let these two filthy people pollute the company's air. By now, the security guards had understood who truly held authority. They swiftly moved in and dragged the two overreaching intruders out of the office. Bok Na-tu still turned back, shouting furiously. Han Wudong, just you wait. Once the test results are out tomorrow, I'll make you beg for every scrap of food. I watched her flustered departure calmly and smiled gently. Don't worry. I'm still waiting for the results too. Chapter 4. 9. Finally, the day Bok Na-tu had longed for so desperately had arrived. I deliberately rose early, applied light makeup, and dressed neatly. After all, one should look their best when witnessing the truth deliver a resounding slap to someone's face. Aside from my mother-in-law, Zhang Quijia had even summoned a crowd of relatives to the DNA testing center, likely to witness the truth. He probably thought the more people saw me humiliated, the more satisfying it would be. How pitifully naive. He tried to make me the laughingstock of the world, only to end up as the most pathetic one himself. Before the results were read, I smiled intentionally and turned to ask Zhang Quijia, "This testing center, did you choose it yourself? Once we receive the results, you won't have any objections, will you?" Zhang Quijia straightened his back, speaking with full confidence. "Of course not. I, Zhang Quijia, stand by my word." I nearly burst out laughing. That old saying, "Won't cry until you see the coffin," truly written for him. Before the specialist returned, Bok Na-tu had already begun her performance. She clung sweetly to Zhang Quijia's arm, resting her head on his shoulder. Her voice so saccharine it gave one chills. "Quijia, once the results are in, our little family of 3 can finally be together again." As she spoke, she cast a mocking glance in my direction. I didn't bother to respond, merely turned gently toward Tutu. As expected, her face remained icy cold, utterly unmoved by the scene before her. Bok Na-tu was completely ignored, a brief flicker of awkwardness crossing her face. But just seconds later, she regained her composure and softened her tone toward Tutu. "From now on, I'm your real mother. If you want anything, just tell me." Then she took out a small, elegant jewelry box from her purse and held it out. "This is a necklace from me to you. A little gift for recognizing our bond. Do you like it?" Tutu didn't even glance at it. Her response was calm and distant. "No need." The smile on Bok Na-tu's lips froze instantly. Zhang Quijia quickly stepped in to ease the tension. "Tutu, your mother means well. I don't need her so-called good intentions," Tutu said firmly. "I have only one mother, and that is Han Wudong." A warm, tender feeling bloomed quietly in my chest. My child always on my side. Just then, the specialist entered the room, holding 3 envelopes containing the DNA results. All 3, Zhang Quijia, Bok Na-tu and Zhang Catch, leapt to their feet, eyes fixed on the papers like starving dogs spotting meat. Their gazes, brimming with smugness, bore into me as though I were about to fall from grace, while they stood on the cusp of triumph. I could hardly stop myself from laughing aloud. The specialist opened the first envelope. Bok Na-tu held her breath, her crimson nails digging into Zhang Quijia's arm like claws. He was trembling with nervous anticipation, his face flushed as though ablaze. He whispered, "Tutu, our family can finally be whole again." His eyes were filled with scorn as he looked at me, as if I were a stray dog about to be kicked out. Bok Na-tu was even more ridiculous, her entire body trembling, voice stammering with emotion. "Tutu, mommy can finally prove it." Zhang Catch was the most brazen. He rushed up to Tutu, exclaiming, "Sis, once we get back to Zhang Corp, you have to make me the general manager, okay? I'm your real brother, only I truly want to help you." As if the GM title was already in his pocket. Watching the 3 of them put on their farcical performance, I simply smiled coldly and sighed. Until the final moment, who the real fool is, remains to be seen. The specialist cleared his throat and began to read the result. According to the DNA comparison between Ms. Bok Na-tu and Miss Zhang Tutu, he paused deliberately. Bok Na-tu and Zhang Quijia leaned forward, nerves stretched taut, desperate to hear every word. All around, the Zhang family relatives held their breath, waiting for the moment my mask would fall. There is no biological mother-daughter relationship. The room fell into an instant frozen silence.
Giang Quy I SWITCHED his SPERM.
And he screamed like a madman.
Impossible.
There must be some mistake.
Bạch Nhã Tư sai.
How could this be? There must be a blood tie. Her face turned ghostly pale. Not even her meticulous makeup could hide her panic. The old man must have read it wrong. Give it to me. Zhang Catch snatched the report, stared at it for a long while, then collapsed into a chair mumbling, How did it turn out like this? I nodded slightly, signaling for the specialist to announce the second result, between me and Tutu. According to the DNA comparison conclusion, Ms. Han Wudong and Ms. Zhang Tutu share a biological mother-daughter relationship. The room erupted into chaos. Zhang Quijia looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He stammered, completely stunned. This can't be. Seeing Tutu, my mother-in-law, and the relatives all staring blankly in disbelief, I gently explained. That year, when you made your move, I saw it with my own eyes. So, I quietly swapped out my own egg. Watching Zhang Quijia's face slowly drain of color, I continued, each word crystal clear. Oh, and by the way, I also swapped out your sperm with my ex-boyfriend's. The room went deathly still. My mother-in-law jerked her head up, her once dim eyes now wide with horror. I looked directly into Zhang Quijia's eyes and emphasized every word. Tutu is not your daughter. Congratulations. You've played father to someone else's child for over 20 years. Zhang Quijia completely lost control, ripping the test result from the specialist's hands. The moment he saw the conclusion, his eyes flamed red with rage. He lunged at me, roaring, You vile woman! But the bodyguard behind me stepped forward in a flash, pushing him back so hard he fell to the floor. I remained still, looking down at him from above, my gaze as cold as a winter frost. Bak Na-tu, like a drowning person clutching at straws, rushed over to Zhang Quijia, her voice as sharp as a blade. Guiza! Tutu isn't your child, which means she's not a member of the Zhang family. The only rightful heir can be Zhang Catch. Her crimson nails dug deep into his arm. Her words. Zhang Quijia seemed to awaken from a trance. He sprang to his feet and staggered toward his mother, who was still too shocked to speak. Mom! Elders of the clan. You all saw it. Tutu is not my child. He pointed directly at me, his voice hoarse from yelling, spittle flying. She's the illegitimate daughter of Han Wudong and her ex. There's no way the Jiang family's fortune can fall into the hands of an outsider. Bai Na-tu and her mother chimed in. That's right. That girl must be expelled from Jiang Corporation. The only rightful heir is me, Zhang Quijia. Chapter 6. 11. My mother-in-law, the calm and kind woman she had always been, could no longer hide her shock. She slowly regained her composure from the initial dizziness, silent, her gaze so complex that no one could guess what she was thinking. It was rare for me to see her like this. Her voice trembled slightly as she softly asked me, Wudong, is this true? I looked at her and my heart softened. A twinge stung my nose. It's true, Mom.
Giang Quy.
Seeing that his mother wasn't reacting as he'd hoped, grew impatient and shook her shoulders. Mom, hurry and declare me the rightful heir. But my mother-in-law was now completely composed. She gently pushed his hand away and calmly asked, Do you even know who Wudong's ex-boyfriend is? Zhang Quijia roared in anger, clutching his head. What does it matter if I do or don't? Whoever it is, Tutu is still not a Jiang by blood. My mother-in-law softly spoke a name that thundered through the room like a lightning strike. Wudong's ex is Jiang Dukdike, your eldest brother. Tutu is still of Jiang blood, and she is the only rightful heir. Her words exploded like a bomb in the room. You all know the Jiang family's tradition. Only the legitimate child of the direct bloodline can inherit the estate. Only if the main line is completely gone are side branches or illegitimate children considered. Her eyes turned sharp as blades as she looked directly at Zhang Quijia, her voice brimming with the authority of the clan. Years ago, after Dukdike's accident, The old master had no choice but to let you return and be acknowledged. Kuijia. Do not forget your true identity. At those words, his true identity, Jiang Kuijia turned deathly pale. His name, Kuijia, which means returning home, was given to him by his nameless, statusless mother long ago, along with the hope that one day, he would be accepted by the family. Back then, when he was young, my father-in-law had been trapped by his personal secretary and ended up with Jiang Kuijia. But the Jiang family valued pure bloodlines deeply. Not just anyone born of their blood had the right to walk through these doors. The only son he acknowledged, and the rightful heir, was Jiang Duk-dike, the son born of a prestigious union between him and my mother-in-law. As for Jiang Kuijia, he was given financial support on time, but his father never once looked back. That's why his mother named him Kuijia, hoping that one day he would truly return home. But life is never predictable. The one his father placed all his hopes on, nurtured with every ounce of effort, Jiang Duk-dike, was in a tragic accident during a construction inspection and fell into a vegetative state. Left with no other choice, the old master shifted his expectations to Jiang Kuijia. But the only condition to enter the Jiang family gates was to marry me, because my father had once saved his life. Jiang Kuijia never loved me. In his heart, the shadow of his white moonlight had long been engraved. He never wanted to marry me, but he also understood very well. Returning to the Jiang family meant power and wealth. So he took advantage of what seemed like my silent affection and reluctantly agreed to the wedding. First, Bainatu looked down on him for being poor, not even sparing him a glance. But the moment he became a Jiang family heir, she immediately changed her attitude, willingly becoming his hidden mistress. In a way, Jiang Kuijia and Bainatu were faithful to each other. Apart from his weak sperm, the biggest reason we had to do IVF was because he remained faithful to Bainatu and had never touched me. The two of them had planned to wait until the old master took his last breath, and then seized the entire Jiang fortune. But he outwitted them. He divided the shares into 4 parts, creating a balance of power, and even appointed me as the chairwoman of Jiang Corporation, forbidding Jiang Kuijia from any management role. For all those years, he could only live off the annual dividends, never once touching real power, and bitterness festered within him.
No.
I don't believe Tutu is Big Brother's child.
Han Vu Yong.
You think just saying it makes it true? Jiang Kuijia continued to struggle in despair. I gave a soft smile and slowly took another document from my handbag. This is the DNA test result proving the biological relationship between Tutu and Jiang Duk-dike. I placed the report before everyone. It's alright if you don't believe me. Brother Duk-dike is still under care at the nursing facility. Tutu is also here. You may request the National Forensic Center to collect fresh samples for another test. Tutu is truly of Jiang blood. I believe the truth will speak for itself and convince everyone. The mother and daughter Bainatu were frozen, as if a cold wind had just lashed across their faces. No one could have imagined that Tutu was Jiang Duk-dike's biological daughter. Even my mother-in-law, though still composed as usual, had tears shimmering in her eyes. The crowd began to murmur. So Tutu is the daughter of Duk-dike. Then the only legitimate heir to the Jiang family is that little girl. And Jiang Kuijia, just a stray child, what inheritance is he dreaming of? Their eyes now looked at Jiang Kuijia with contempt. He seemed completely drained, slumping to the ground, his eyes hollow. Not only had he failed to pull Tutu to his side, he had handed the entire fortune into her hands. Bainatu and her mother were utterly dazed, all their earlier arrogance gone. The relatives could now see clearly, Jiang Kuijia was no match for me. Following him would bring no gain. One by one, they stood up and quietly left.
Jiang Kuijia stay at me.
Calculation in his eyes. Then, as if swallowing all his bitterness, he forced a flattering smile and stepped forward.
Vu Yong.
I know you still love me, don't you? You're just mad because of what happened with Natu, right? I swear I'll end things with her. Please give me a chance to return to the Jiang family. Please. I looked at him, but all I felt was pity. I softly replied, Jiang Kuijia, you're mistaken. I never loved you. His face went pale. What did you say? His lips trembled as he stuttered. Then back then, when you looked at me with such longing, when you insisted on marrying me, what was that for? I answered calmly. I looked at you because your face resembled Duk Dyke. I looked at you only to find a sliver of comfort, nothing more. As for marrying you, it was to protect Duk Dyke's legacy. You were chosen to play the role of a Jiang heir. And I needed the title of daughter-in-law to enter Jiang Corporation, to defend it from greedy relatives. Perhaps you wonder, why was Duk Dyke my ex? Why did father entrust the company to me? Not you, his blood son? Why has mother always treated me like her own daughter? Because when you were young, you were never once allowed into the Jiang family home. But I, though raised in the countryside, was brought to the mansion every summer and winter break by father. Duk Dyke and I were childhood sweethearts, in love since our youth. Mother has always treated me like her own daughter. My father-in-law once saw me as the one to shoulder the future alongside Duk Dyke. He gave me an education, trained me as if I were a true heir. I let out a laugh, my eyes filled with irony. How ridiculous. You thought I was just a country girl clinging to the Jiang family after my father saved someone's life? And you even foolishly believed that I loved you.
Giang Quy-gia stood frozen.
As if struck by lightning from a clear sky. He had always believed I loved him deeply, to the point of obsession. But now, he finally realized that everything had been a calculated game. He was nothing but a substitute. Everything he once had was built on a lie. And now that the curtain of truth had been drawn back, he had nothing left. Zhang Kuijia was completely shattered. We had been performing this play for 25 years. Now the show was over. I asked the butler to pack his things and have him removed from the Jiang family estate. Then I turned to my mother-in-law. Mom, I once collaborated with a foreign medical institute. They have a project on neural stimulation therapy for patients in a vegetative state. It could help them wake up. My mother-in-law was startled, her head lifting, a flicker of hope gleaming in her eyes. You mean? I nodded. Duk Dyke has already undergone several treatment sessions. His brainwaves are now stable, and his responses are promising. The doctor said, he's about to wake up. She couldn't hold it in any longer. Tears silently streamed down her cheeks. Duk Dyke, my son. Meanwhile, Zhang Kuijia, cast out of the Jiang family, wandered aimlessly like a soulless shell. 25 years of living in a fantasy turned to ashes in an instant. He returned to the apartment he once bought for Bok Na-tu. But the moment he stepped in, she screamed like a madwoman. It's all your fault. Now we've lost everything. Zhang Kuijia turned to her, eyes bloodshot. My fault. If you hadn't switched the embryos back then, would things have turned out like this?
Bạch Nhã Tư phô rơi.
She never imagined. The man who once defied the world for her would now place all the blame on her. You agreed to it back then too.
Giang Quy-gia grip her urit tightly.
The force so harsh it made her tremble. Shut up. What good is it to bring that up now? We're out of money. Do you understand? We only have 50,000 left. How are we supposed to survive? Bok Na-tu reflexively pulled her hand away. Then what do we do now? Are you saying we have to actually get jobs? Zhang Kuijia let go, his eyes vacant. Yes, now what? He was used to a life of luxury, of being flattered and pampered. And now he had nothing.
Just 10, Bạch Nhã Tư sợ I slip up.
5 million. I gave Tutu 5 million. We can still get it back. Zhang Kuijia's eyes gleamed with hope. Let's go.
Phải từ từ now.
The two stumbled their way to Tutu's apartment. After ringing the bell countless times, she finally opened the door, her expression lazy and indifferent. Seeing them, her face showed no surprise. What do you want from me? Bok Na-tu immediately shoved past her, barging inside. Give me my money back. Tutu let out a soft chuckle, her voice cold. And why should I? Bok Na-tu trembled with rage, pointing at her. That's not my money. Tutu casually walked to the sofa, sat down, crossed her legs, her relaxed posture infuriating. Mrs. Bok, that 5 million was legally transferred to me as a gift. We even had it notarized. Did you forget? So I have no reason to return it. Bok Na-tu's vision went dark. You, She pointed at Tutu, stammering, unable to speak. Her chest ached, her vision blurred, and she collapsed to the floor unconscious.
Giang Quy Gia panic. Nhã Tư, Nhã Tư.
He rushed to hold her, screaming and crying desperately. Tutu looked at the chaos before her, let out a quiet sigh, and with a trace of mercy, dialed for an ambulance. Then, as if nothing had happened, she bowed her head and returned to reading her book, unable to get the money back. Zhang Kuijia and Bak Na-tu began blaming each other. When the last of their 50,000 ran out, Zhang Kuijia didn't have a penny to his name, and Bak Na-tu refused to spend any of her remaining personal savings to support him. She forced him to get a job or move out. That's when I kindly contacted a headhunting firm and asked them to arrange the most suitable job possible for Zhang Kuijia. A while later, I invited Tutu out for dinner. On the way to the restaurant, I walked along humming a tune. Tutu tilted her head, curious. "Mom, you seem so happy. What's the occasion?" I smiled. "Because in a moment, there'll be something entertaining to watch." We sat on the second floor, in a dining area with large glass walls that looked down into the open kitchen below. Tutu peeked through the glass, visibly surprised. The man who once refused to lift a finger around the house was now in a chef's uniform, busy cooking in the restaurant kitchen. It was Zhang Kuijia. Tutu raised an eyebrow at me. "That's it?" "Not yet. Just keep watching," I said softly, motioning for her to be patient. Before long, Bak Na-tu entered the restaurant with a tall, well-dressed young man. The two were laughing and chatting, close enough to raise eyebrows.
Giang Quy Gia saw them.
His face stiffened. "Na-tu? What are you doing here?" But Bak Na-tu paid him no attention, continuing her cheerful conversation.
Giang Quy Gia frowned, his voice sharp. Nhã Tư.
"I'm talking to you." Finally, Bak Na-tu lazily glanced at him. "What am I doing?" "Eating, obviously." "Are you blind?" Zhang Kuijia pointed at the man beside her, face flushing with anger. You and him." Bak Na-tu suddenly burst out laughing, syrupy sweet yet cold as ice. "What about me and Kevin? What's it to you?" Zhang Kuijia's face turned purple, his voice trembling. He's my boyfriend," she cut in, her eyes defiant. "What? Is that a problem?" Zhang Kuijia staggered back, stunned. Boyfriend? How dare you? Dare what?" She curled her lip.
Let me tell you, Giang Quy Gia.
"Kevin and I have been together for over 20 years. Every cent you gave me, I spent it on him." She paused, then continued mockingly. "And one more thing, Zhang Catch is the son of Kevin and me." It was as if all the blood had drained from Zhang Kuijia's body. He stood paralyzed, his eyes fixed on Bak Na-tu, filled with anguish and despair. Kevin smirked from the side. "Bro, the horns on your head are big enough to cover all of Inner Mongolia."
Giang Quy Gia's anti-word collapsed.
The woman he'd loved for over 20 years had betrayed him. The child he once protected like a treasure wasn't even his. Everything he had devoted himself to turned out to be a cruel joke. He returned to the kitchen, where he worked, pulled out a knife, and charged back like a madman, screaming. He lunged at Bak Na-tu. "You wretched woman! You ruined me! You ruined everything I had!" Bak Na-tu let out a blood-curdling scream. Blood soaked through her dress, staining it crimson. Tutu watched the bloody scene in horror, while I calmly took a sip of tea. The police quickly arrived and arrested Zhang Kuijia. Tutu trembled as she turned to me. "Mom, when you said there would be a show, was this what you meant?" I set the teacup down, my voice gentle yet chilling. "Tutu, today I've taught you a lesson. When it comes to enemies, never be soft-hearted." Tutu still didn't understand. "They tried to steal our fortune. Driving them away should have been enough. Why go so far?" I tried to stay composed, but the hatred in my voice seeped through. "Because your father's accident back then wasn't an accident. Zhang Kuijia deliberately arranged for him to be at the construction site. And it was Bak Na-tu who cut the truck's brakes." I could never forget the sight of Zhang Duk-dike, covered in blood, lying motionless in that hospital bed. For 25 years, I swallowed my hatred day and night. I once wanted to kill them both, but I didn't. I wanted them to destroy each other. Zhang Kuijia's job as a chef, I arranged it, so he'd have the means to commit the crime. As for Bok Na-tu, I invited her on purpose. Kevin was actually a high-end escort. I had the madam send him those dinner vouchers, the exact time, the exact place, right where Zhang Kuijia worked. It was impossible for him not to see. In the end, Bok Na-tu was rushed to the hospital, but she didn't make it. Later, Tutu told me that without her mother's financial support, Zhang Catch became desperate and ended up becoming an escort himself, just like his biological father. One time while out with friends, Tutu even saw someone accidentally call him over. How laughable. Day by day, life gradually returned to normal. Until a call from the hospital shattered it all. The doctor reported, Zhang Zhuxik had again. I couldn't believe my ears. After 25 years, he was finally awake. I hurriedly brought my mother-in-law and Tutu to the hospital. Inside the hospital room, he still lay there, his face pale, but his eyes were clear and bright. The moment he saw me, he smiled gently. Wudong, why have you aged? My nose burned, and tears streamed like a river. You've slept too long. I choked. We've waited for you for so long. I turned and pointed toward the door, where my mother-in-law and Tutu were standing. His gaze stopped at Tutu, hesitant. This is? I gently replied. This is our daughter. She was born through artificial insemination. He paused for a moment, then smiled, his eyes tender and full of love. What's her name? He asked.
He answered, her name is Tutu. Tu is in Zhang for Zhang Zhuxik.
He nodded softly, smiling warmly. Tutu, how beautiful she is.